So even though this past weekend was full of great music, I kept coming back to one band's new release that I discovered last week. The more I listened to it, the more I enjoyed. I can't help but keep coming back to it. Of course, I just have to talk about it. So here we are. Desire's Magic Theater by Purson. So Purson is a psychedelic acid rock band from the UK formed in around the 2011 era, with Rosaline Cunningham being kind of that figure. She originally had formed ipso facto, but once that kind of fell apart, she decided to try her hand again with Purson, and it has just been fantastic. Joining her on this album, we have George Hudson on guitars, Samuel Shove on organ, Mellotron, which, nice, Barnaby Maddock on bass, and John Hobbs on drums. These guys are some masterful players here. Their overall style harkens back to that late 60s, early 70s psychedelic acid rock. We're talking about, say, the Deep Purple, the Pink Floyd almost, that early Pink Floyd stuff, but still having that very heavy feel about it. A lot of other bands have tried to incorporate this heavy feel in more of a psychedelic approach, and I feel like these guys have hit the nail on the head when really focusing their sound down and really creating a great listen. Right from the opening track, the title track of Desire's Magic Theater, we know we're in for a treat. The guitars just hit you with that driving sound. Everything's really coming together, and I love how this song keeps changing, and I love the chord changes within this. That's the real treat on this album for me. Throughout the entire playing, Rosaline's vocals are very, very haunting. I feel like this feminine approach with being that very oomph is a great touch, and one that we need desperately more of within our community. Whenever there's a woman being the forefront of a band, it's almost like that angelical kind of a stance where it's very heavenly, instead of being like this untouchable goddess at times, which, I mean, she does dip her toe into that, but it's much more of a human aspect on this. It's much more of just being another player in the band, and I love that approach. And those guitar hooks, they're so good, especially with Electric Landlady. It's almost feeling like, you know, the Black Keys meets Led Zeppelin meets Jimi Hendrix, and just being such a great meaty hook. Taking those styles from the 70s that a lot of people were pioneering and mastering them now in the 2016 era, it's such a great concept, and I wish more bands were doing this. We have the technology now to really expand the musical landscape, and a lot of these songs are really doing that.
Collecting the water off the dark spectrum, drinking it down and turning those black heavy clouds that you carry around into rainbows and smiles sparrow every upshot.
Rosaline's vocals again on this track just bleed with passion. I love the lyrics on this album. I keep humming along and singing along. They're so psychedelic and so trippy. It's hard not to smile when you're listening to a lot of this song. The Dead Dodo Down, the third track on this album, has that more of a jazzy groove to it, and it provides a lot more of that sexy atmosphere that we have. Rosaline's singing and playing is a little bit more subdued, but because of that, she's allowed to really express herself a little bit more. It almost feels like, say, a Doors song in that sense, you know, hakening back to, say, the Morrison Hotel at times. We've got that really trippy, almost a circusy act, and that's a little bit of the overarching theme on here, is more of that theater, circus, showmanship, so this really blends through. And coming into that pedigree chums, I love the bass line on this album. It's really funky. It's such a great new approach to this older style of music. And the fifth song of Sky Parade, I love the play out of this song. At first, when this song's coming in, I was thinking, oh man, we've already kind of heard this before. I use the simile of this album being like an older house that you would come to visit. It's all structured in the same building, and so A lot of the woodwork, a lot of the paneling, a lot of the trims are all the same, but each room is vastly, vastly different. And so when I entered the Sky Parade within this particular room, I felt like I'd already been here. There hadn't been too much new ground that had been trotted before, but the playout, the ending of this track is what really, really brought it in. So it was more of the details of this room that I really took hold. This actually provides us with kind of that middle point as well, with Window Cleaner being the second side on this album. And this is one of the leading EPs and leading singles. This is actually what got me into the album. This is definitely harkening back to that older Pink Floyd, Syd Barrett-esque, where we've got that overdubbing of the almost echoey, haunting vocals. Just the way that it plays and orchestrates, it sounds very much like a Piper at the Gates of Dawn or even a Saucerful of Secrets.
I'd rather die. So be looking today.
And after that very trippy, almost mellow track, we have The Way It Is. And this is a really bouncy and fun track. You know, it provides that energy and that upbeats that really, I don't know, the more I listen to it, the more I just gush about it. The next two songs, The Way It Is and Mr. Howard, blend very well together. It seems like these two are having a little bit of a dance on their own. The Way It Is a little bit more of a optimistic and bouncy track, where Mr. Howard is definitely more of a oomph and heavy hitting track, but they kind of hit that same note, so I feel like the two are kind of dancing around one another. I Know is one of the more somber tracks on this album, and one that really shows more of the passion behind it. I really, really enjoy this, as we've got that call and answer of I know, she knows. Again, a really well orchestrated track where all the players are really blended very, very well together. The standout track on this entire thing, and the one that brings it all together, is the Bittersweet, that final track. Just the way that this whole song is orchestrated, it never sits still. It's always moving and always going all over the place. A lot of those revising of themes that we had within it, even though it's a little bit of a shorter track at the 7-minute mark, it has that really epic scale feel to it. And once you're done with it, it's such a washover of emotions that, I don't know, it paints such a beautiful dark light picture.
And there's nothing you couldn't say to spoil the day. And there is no need to explain. And there's nothing I can do.
So overall, I cannot stop listening to this album. This might be my favorite album of the year so far. No album has really kind of hit the mark that this album has been able to. It's rekindled that love that I had for this psychedelic acid rock that I used to love a lot in my youth. By doing that and providing such a new take on it, even though it's using a lot of those older techniques, A+ in my books. The only main drawback, and it's a very, very nitpicky one, and it's why I'm not giving it that full masterpiece rating that I usually do for an album of this caliber, is that there's no breathtakingly beautiful moment on this album. There's no movement that really almost moves me to tears where I have to just shut everything else out and have to listen to it. That being said, the entire album as a whole is still phenomenal. And it's for that reason that I have to say I love this album with my whole heart, and you definitely have to check it out. It gets all the praises from me, and one that I'll be listening to for quite a while now. So that's about it for Desire's Magic Theater. What did you guys think about this album? Have a listen to it, and once you do, did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know by commenting below. This one has been a real treat to make because I've just been having a blast listening to it. Even though I've had 2 new releases come this past weekend, I still return to this one time and time again. It's for this real reason that we need more women in this industry. And I'm actually pretty ashamed that we don't have more women within this musical landscape providing and pushing the music forward. So I'm glad to see that these guys have that, and I hope more people follow suit. So with that, thank you guys so much for watching. It's been a real treat. You guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.